Welcome back to my channel. Welcome to Becoming Cleo. I'm so excited that you're here. Today we're going to be chit-chatting about therapy, being a people pleaser, and learning how to set boundaries. So let's get right into it. So I have been a people pleaser pretty much my entire life. I think this is something that started when I was really young, and ever since then it's been like a bad habit that I just cannot shake. So for me, this looks like putting other people's needs first, putting myself last, not knowing how to stand up for myself, not knowing how to use my voice, being afraid to say no to people. And it also looks like wanting to be liked to the point where you're seeking outside validation, which that's a whole nother topic we can get into in a different day. Because this video is just, I'm not about to just be on YouTube an hour talking about that. But if you guys want a topic about outside validation, let me know, because I could literally talk about that for days. But anyway, it also looks like me prioritizing the peace in order to preserve friendships. Really just like a whole list of other things that come with that. There was a time in college where I was literally so afraid to tell people no that I think it was like 2016 or 2017 where I made my New Year's resolution to learn how to say no to folks. I feel like it's such a simple thing, but it was so hard to do, especially when I've been in this place of being a people pleaser for literally most of my life, if not all of my life. And fast forward to 2020, I was in therapy and I was learning about people pleasing. I was learning how to set boundaries and how to stop and just become like a recovering people pleaser. But that is easier said than done, because I talked about it with my therapist, and one of the things that she said with me that stuck with me till this day is, how does it feel to put other people's needs before your own? It took me like 4 or 5 sessions to really understand the question that she was asking me and to realize that that's what I was doing. So I think in 2020, I was trying to do the work. I just don't feel like I was necessarily in the space to go deeper than what we talked about in therapy. But guys, my new therapist, she's really amazing. And I've been in therapy with her since summertime, and we've been talking a lot about boundaries and relationships and people pleasing. And so I have learned some things in these like 7 or 8 months with her. I am not saying that I'm an expert. I'm just someone that is learning and just sharing as I go. And so that's what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about learning how to set boundaries as a recovering people pleaser. So here are some things that I learned about that. The thing that I learned was that reoccurring themes and issues will always arise until you learn to confront them. This one was a huge eye-opener for me, because I feel like I really do believe that we have cycles, that we have karma, and that things always come back around, that they're always full circle, and that until you learn the lesson, this thing is going to keep happening in your life. So I have always believed that, but in the context of friendships and relationships and setting boundaries, I just felt like, I don't know, something about that, I just felt like it didn't apply to that specific area of my life. So I was telling my therapist about this person in my life who I have been knowing for like a year and a half, and I was just like, let's call her Tammy. I was like, Tammy doesn't have any boundaries. She's always pushing mine. I'm trying my best to insert my boundaries and let them know, and I'm really trying hard to just get Tammy to understand that these are my boundaries. And my therapist brought up to me that she had a Tammy in her life, and that Tammy is less about who she is as a person, and she's more about like a representation and a character in your life that's going to keep recurring until you learn the lesson of how to set these boundaries with these particular types of people. That keeps reoccurring in my life because I continue to not insert my boundaries in a way that is effective or in a way that has actually worked before. So she was letting me know that until I learn how to correct this issue here, I'm gonna keep seeing Tammys in my life over and over again. Tammy is gonna do what Tammy does. Tammy is gonna absolutely be Tammy, but I have to choose how I respond, and I have to learn how to set those boundaries so I don't keep encountering Tammy. So it's not like this reoccurring theme or this reoccurring person. So that's the first thing that I kind of learned about setting boundaries, is that the issues are going to continue to arise until you learn the lesson and until you address them. So literally, I feel like I have had a lot of reoccurring themes and a lot of reoccurring people and situations to where I just feel like it all is the same. And a lot of that has to do with my inability to set boundaries properly. The second thing that I learned is that setting boundaries is not a one-time thing. So being a recovering people pleaser, at least for me, it means that I have always been afraid of confrontation, or even what feels like confrontation. Like I have visceral body like experience when I feel like I'm in a confrontational situation. Like I feel like I start to shake and my lip starts to quiver, my eye starts to twitch. Like I feel like I kind of enter in this like fight or flight mode. So I was telling my therapist, like, I feel like I just want to set this boundary one time and that it's like just done with. And she was telling me, like, in certain situations and in certain settings, like for example, professional settings, that it may be a lot harder to just insert this boundary one time and then expect this person to respect your boundaries. And she was saying that that's not always realistic in certain situations. Maybe for example, like professional situations where you're dealing with like a higher up, dealing with a coworker or someone that you see on a regular basis. So there may be times where you really have to learn how to insert that boundary to let them know, like, hey, this is my boundary and I'm not playing about this. But what I will say is that if you continue to let this person walk over you and continue to overstep your boundary, then they will do so even more and even more. So she was letting me know that it's my responsibility and it's my job to continue to set the boundary as much as I need. The third thing that I learned is that it's going to be different setting boundaries with new people in your life versus setting boundaries with people who have been in your life for a while. Making new friends, and I really want to learn boundaries because I just want to make sure that if any issues arise in the relationship, that I'm doing my part to insert my boundary with this new friendship. And so I want to work on it as a whole and work on it together. But I also realize that it's a lot easier, at least for me, to set boundaries when it comes to making new friends because it's like this clean slate. Like they're new, they don't know anything about you, you don't know anything about them. And to me, that feels like they're more inclined to be respectful of your boundary. And if they're that kind of person, they care about continuing to build that relationship and build that friendship with you. So it's there's kind of like a clean slate where there is no like history to rely on. But on the other hand, when it comes to older friends and friends that have been in your life for a while, I found that it may be a little bit more challenging to insert boundaries with them because as you're changing and you're growing and developing and so are they may be used to you one particular way, but let's say you're not that way anymore. It's like they almost have to catch up to like your growth and you have to catch up to their growth and vice versa. It's like I've realized that I may have a more challenging time with older friends inserting boundaries just because they're used to me one way. This doesn't mean that it's impossible to insert a boundary with them. They're a really good friend and if they're respectful of your boundaries and they should receive them well. But there may be situations where it feels like you've changed or they feel like you're different because you're inserting this boundary and it's this thing that you've never done before and it's new for them. So they're not sure how to take it and it's new for you. So you're not really sure how to give it. So that's one of the things that I learned is just like, it may be different setting the boundary depending on the relationship that you have with this person. Maybe it's like how long you guys known each other and how they view you versus how you are now if you've like changed and evolved. Like I said, with the older people in your life, if you're setting boundaries with them and they're not being receptive of them, they're not listening to them and they're not taking it in, then it may be a time to reevaluate that friendship. But I feel like if these are your people and they're meant to be in your life, then they're definitely going to be receptive of your boundaries. Maybe it'll take a while. Maybe it'll take them some time to understand exactly where you're coming from or to understand this change that they see in you. But just give it time and give yourself grace because this could be, if you're like me, a people pleaser, the first time that you're actually trying to insert these boundaries into your life. Fourth thing that I learned about boundary setting is that it's important to gather my thoughts and use my tools and resources before I deliver a boundary to someone. So what I mean by this is I was telling my therapist one of the reasons that I struggle with boundary setting is because I feel like I'm just going to say what I need to say however it comes out. And I don't want to be that person that's like, oh, I said what I said. Or that person that's just like, you're too sensitive. Or that person that's like, that's just how I am. Like if I said it like that and you can't take it, so what? Like I really want to be intentional with how I'm setting boundaries with people and specifically with the language that I'm using to set boundaries. Like I'm not a person that's like blunt or a person that's like harsh or just going to say anything that comes to mind. Like I want to be intentional with what I say, the words that I use, and really how I say it. I feel like a lot of times with boundaries and like with relationships that, and even in just life, you hear people say like, it's not what you said, it's how you said it. And so I really just want to be mindful of the things that I say when I'm giving this boundary. And so my therapist has given me two amazing tools. She gave me a lot, but for this video, she's given me two amazing tools that kind of help me to like gather my thoughts first before I want to talk to people and set a boundary. So the first tool that she gave me is this phrase, and it goes, the truth is, and you insert your truth, and I accept that. And for me, this helps me to identify my thoughts, but also to identify what I feel like is my truth. And the second part, this helps me to identify what it is that I can accept in a relationship, in life, in friendships. What I'll do is I'll journal, I'll write that phrase down, and I'll just continue to write it down and write whatever comes to mind as I fill in the blanks, and I just kind of figure out what is a truth for me and what is something that I'm willing to accept about this relationship as it relates to boundaries or lack thereof. The second tool that I use, I forget exactly what she calls it, but I know there's like 2 categories. So whenever there's a situation that's happening in my life, she always encourages me to write down 2 columns, one that says evidence for and one that says evidence against. So in the evidence for column, I'm supposed to write down everything that I believe about this person that's true, about the situation that I feel like this is confirmation that I'm seeing things in this particular way. So everything that's basically saying like, yes, I am affirming all this is happening, evidence for. And then the evidence against is like basically looking back at the situation, looking back at the person or whatever the case may be, and writing down things that may go against what you were initially thinking. So it's kind of like playing devil's advocate a little bit. And so in this practice, I found that I have a lot of evidence for, but I don't necessarily have evidence against. And so that to me just means that I'm not looking at my thoughts critically, and I'm not examining it, and I'm not examining them in a way where it feels like logical or where it makes sense to me. So this exercise is really just to see exactly how you're feeling about the situation and about the person, because there are times where we jump to conclusions, there are times where we make assumptions and we're so quick to act on things. But I think having this process and having this resource really helps me to sit down and figure out exactly how I'm feeling about this person, exactly how I'm feeling about the situation, and then to just question my thinking. Like, is this assumption that I made? Was I too quick to think about this? Am I jumping to conclusions? For me, I feel like I make a lot of judgments and a lot of conclusions internally, and I kind of just have it be like, okay, this is how I feel, so this is a fact. So this is a great way for me to clear up like my feelings versus the facts and like my truths. So all of these exercises and tools, like after I do them, I then feel like I'm more in like a level-headed space, more in clear mind, more feeling at ease and at peace, so I can then go out and set the boundary. But these 2 tools, y'all, they have changed my life, and they have really helped me to like get my thoughts and get my thinking together. The 5th thing that I learned is that setting boundaries gets easier over time. This is also something that my therapist told me, and shout out to her. I don't even know if she watches my YouTube video, but if you see this, shout out to you. But yeah, so she was letting me know that the more and more you practice inserting your boundaries, the more and more that you just say confidently and you say firmly exactly how you feel with this boundary, the easier it becomes over time. And I think that that's because it's almost like training a muscle. It's like, for example, working out, and let's say you lift like 10-pound weights every day, and your arms are getting stronger and they feel great, but eventually it's like the 10 pounds becomes too light. So now you need to go up to 15 pounds to compensate for like you always lifting the 10. So it really is like building and training a muscle, and then over time it becomes muscle memory. So right now for me, setting boundaries, it feels very scary, and it feels like a really hard thing to do, and sometimes it feels like it's a thing that I just can't do because I'm too scared. But I'm finding that the more I like think over my thoughts, the more that I use these tools and resources that she's given me, the easier it is for me to insert a clear and firm boundary. And I was even telling her, like last week, I set a boundary that was so clear, and it was actually very well received by a person that I didn't think it would be well received by. And to me, that's like a little bit of growth. Like I feel like 1% better about me setting boundaries and standing up for myself because I did it. And it's like, now that I've done this hard thing that I didn't even feel was possible, I know that I can continue to do it again and again and again. So I've been working out this muscle, I've been training it, and I'm hoping that by the end of this year, by next year, whatever the case may be, that I would just feel a lot better and a lot confident to firmly and to clearly set these boundaries. So it's something that may take time. It's not something that you're going to get overnight, and it's not just something that you're going to wake up and magically be like, hey, I know how to set a boundary. It takes work, it takes time, and I'm just committed to the work, and I am committed to learning how to set boundaries so I can improve my life, because y'all, it's not fun being a person out here that doesn't put yourself first. Like, that is for the birds. The 6th thing that I learned about boundary setting is that you have to give yourself grace for the past. So also in talking to my therapist, I was telling her about situations in the past, like years ago, where I felt like I didn't insert a boundary how I thought I did. Like maybe I loosely set a boundary, but it wasn't firm and it wasn't clear to the other person. And let's say whatever the outcome was, the outcome was. But what I really learned is that I can't change the past. I can only change how I'm deciding to move forward, and that I have to give myself grace for things that happened when I didn't have the tools and when I didn't have the resources to properly and clearly set boundaries. So I know a lot of times as we're like learning and growing, at least for me, I feel bad for maybe ways that I have acted in the past, and I feel bad that I didn't show up for myself in a way that I would have now. And the truth is, I was a different person back then. I didn't have the tools back then. I didn't have the knowledge or the education about how to set boundaries, how to effectively communicate, how to deliver the boundary intentionally. These were just things that I didn't have knowledge of, especially being in my early 20s. That's just not something that I learned growing up. And so I just feel like I have this learning curve now when it comes to setting boundaries, where I'm still learning in my late 20s about this, which is fine. I'm giving myself grace for that, but it's like, I didn't have any of the things that I have now then. And I'm also a very different person, so I can't go back and change how things happen. I can only do my best and decide to move forward intentionally and to give myself grace. So if you're someone out there that's like, you're on this journey and you're healing and you feel bad about how things happened in the past, give yourself grace and know that now that you have the tools, you can decide how you want to move forward. Those are the 6 things that I learned about how to set boundaries as a recovering people pleaser. I use the word recovering because I still don't want to identify as someone that people pleases. I much rather identify as someone that's recovering from it. Like, I'm doing the work, I'm in recovery, and I'm trying my best to continue to get out of that point where I no longer feel like I identify with a people pleaser at all. So maybe from recovering to former, but we're not there yet. And that's why we made this entire video. So those were some of the things that I learned. Like, if you're a people pleaser and you identify and you relate with some of the things that I said, like, I hear you, I feel you, I see you, I am you, I was you. And I hope that this video was helpful to you. If you are on this journey or you're wanting to be on this journey, please leave your comments below about anything that you've learned, things you want to learn. Feel free to comment and share however y'all are feeling after watching this video below. But thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to be sure to follow me across all socials, and don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.